Okay, so I think we're live now. I think we're good to go. Um, just had some issues there with my bit rate. Apparently, it was a bit too high, and that was causing some issues. So I just had to alter that a second. So yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, we'll get into this article now. No more messing around. So this article is about Francis Cress Welsing, and it was released in 2016, and so it's a little old. But from what I can tell, I mean, it doesn't really matter how old it is. The fact that this has been on the website for 4 years is already a little concerning. Um, but basically, this is an article about melanin theory, which I guess is this kind of it's this idea that black people are the superior race, essentially. And so we're going to get into it a little bit more. I don't know the full extent of this article. I haven't actually fully read it yet. The way I came across it, I was watching the Rose of Dawn podcast, so shout out to Rose of Dawn there. And they briefly mentioned this as they were going through. And I just thought it was just a really interesting thing, and I just wanted to take a little bit more of a look at it. So I thought we could read it together and maybe pick it apart a little bit and see what is really going on with this. Um, so let's start off with the reason for this article. So following the tragic news of Frace's, or is it? Oh, sorry, I think I said Francis. I think it's Frace's. Francis Cress Welsing's passing. Black History Month 365 is making the pledge to broadcast her theories so that you may learn more about the woman who redefined the discussion around racism. Now, if by redefine you mean make it even more racist, or I mean, did she even redefine it? I mean, is this like a redefining, or is this just the same shit that we've heard from white nationalists too? Well, let's find out. So, in her most recited piece of work, the ISIS Papers, comes Welsing's most famous theory, melanin theory. The theory originates around the concept that white people are the genetically defective descendants of albino mutants. Well, that's one hell of a fucking sentence, isn't it? What the fuck? What the fuck? Okay, so Welsing also states that because of this defective mutation, they may have been forcibly expelled from Africa, explaining the journey many humans took out from Africa and into the rest of the world. For white people, their journey out of Africa took them into modern Europe. I mean, that. Okay, so they're talking about an actual phenomenon of why racial demographics have appeared in the world as they do today, and they're trying to explain this with saying that basically the reason it happened was because of this racism. But I want to know, do they think this theory is like, is this legit? It feels like some people buy into this, like, you know, like these Hebrew Israelite type people, these black Israelites. I feel like they're kind of in this. They believe in this kind of thing, but not only, but instead of seeing it as like a racist ideology, they buy into the literal ideology of it, which is kind of amazing. This notion is further developed into addressing white supremacy by stating that because it is so easy for pure whiteness to be genetically lost during interracial mixing, white-skinned people develop an aggressive colonial urge to protect this mutation, creating dominating societies all over all others, particularly through military force at the cost of any coloured society's development. It to me, from what I can tell from history, it seems that perhaps this could be a legitimate explanation as to, because I think racism has run pretty deep in the world for a very long time. And I would even suggest that that goes even further back than recorded time. I mean, tribalism is apparently in our DNA, so it would probably make a lot of sense if that was the case. So, this great migration of white people into the northern part of the world, i.e., Europe, you know, I would say that perhaps yes, it could. Part of the cause for that could have been on a racial line, and that perhaps black people did view themselves as genetically superior to the whites, and that's what caused these mass migrations. But I just want to know, are they thinking that's like a good thing or legitimate, or are they thinking that's some kind of truth, like because the Africans at that time thought that they were better than white people genetically, that is a legitimate thing? Like, why if it's wrong when the white supremacists think that, I don't understand why it's not wrong when the black supremacists think that. Like, it seems like a very disgusting point of view, and hopefully, if you're anti-racist, you would think that this should be considered wrong and shouldn't be published on the fucking Black History website. Imagine like having a... Well, I guess white history does include the Nazi stuff, but it's usually condemned, so I don't know what the tone of this article is going to be, but we'll see. Welsing ascribes certain inherent and behavioural differences between black and white people to a melanin deficiency in white people. Welsing proposes that she calls a functional definition of racism. Right. So her book, I don't understand what that means. Like, sorry, maybe it's just because I'm a little high. I decided to get a little high. But that seems... what I don't understand what they're saying here. Welsh ascribes certain inherent and behavioural differences between black and white people to a melanin deficiency in white people. So she's saying that basically it's white people's fault that there's issues between black and white people. Like, they're at fault for their own deficiency, and that we have developed a racism because of it. But isn't she also saying that the black people were racist too? Like, surely it would hold true for both in that case, right? But also this colonial thing, oh my god, like, it's just sinking in. Like, as I'm reading it, it's kind of sinking in. Like, it's like hitting me in waves. But like this, the colonial thing, this urge to protect this mutation, it's just... I think it kind of comes down to tribalism a little bit, that I think all races have that, right? Like, I think all races have something of an element where they would like to continue their line in some way. And I don't know how I really feel about that idea, but I feel like it's kind of observable in the world, and I don't know if it's necessarily wrong or right. The problem with it is where it becomes genocidal and you want to eliminate other genetic, you know, well, just other races and stuff. Like, if that's what you want to do, like, that is just wrong, in my opinion, no matter the race. Like, I think it's one thing to say that, oh, maybe I'd prefer to be with a white woman and have white children, or a black woman and have black children, but it's another thing to say that another race is, like, completely mutated and, you know, is... like lesser, basically, and should be breeded out or exterminated or something. Like, that is where it feels immoral. That's where it crosses the immoral line for me. And it's just kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Like, this kind of stuff is kind of mind-blowing, really. So her book, The ISIS Papers, explains it as such. Functional definition of racism equals white supremacy equals apartheid. So there's no idea of the black people being racist in any way. This is basically, she's saying that the white people invented racism, essentially. But if the claim is... This is why it's so retarded, because if the claim is that white people had to leave because they were seen as deficient and mutated and were driven out, then what? Like, it's that is racism, right? That is and at that time they would have been the power, right? The white people would have been the minority. Right, okay. As a black behavioral scientist and practicing psychiatrist, wow, she should be fired. My own functional definition of racism, white supremacy, is as follows. Racism, white supremacy, is the local and global power system and dynamic structure maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional responses conducted simultaneously in all areas of people actively: economics, education, entertainment, labour, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. For the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast majority of people are classified as non-white by white-skinned people, and all the non-white people are genetically dominant. Wait, so genetically black people are better, but somehow the white people have figured out how to rule the world. How does that make sense? Like, I just don't understand how that makes... Not that anything about this makes sense, by the way. Not that anything about this remotely makes sense. But especially when you consider that China is such a massive power in the world, India is a growing power in the world and has been for a long time. Like, I mean, African countries could be developing powers in the world if there was just more capitalism and less corruption, and they were more organised as countries. I think there's great potential in Africa. It's just unfortunate it's been blighted by a lot of bullshittery, really. And I know there's debates all in there. I don't want to go into that right now. And I do consider all different viewpoints on this. But, like, I do think there is great potential in Africa. And I just think that perhaps if they focused on capitalism and building their countries up, because a lot of African countries have turned to socialism or types of socialist policy and it hasn't worked out for them. I do think maybe, yeah, that could help change these things. But that's kind of a different thing. But anyway, like, the whole question though of, like, genetically inferior whites, who are also the minority in the world, have somehow figured out along the way how to colonialize and take over the world and control the world, and all the non-black people, well, the non-people of colour or whatever. It just beggars belief, because it just doesn't mirror my image of reality at all. And like, of course white countries are powerful, but there are reasons why they are powerful, and there's no reason why other countries couldn't otherwise come to those same strengths in time. You know, it's just been, everyone's just had different trajectories as in their timelines, you know, in their histories. So it just so happened that the white ones were the ones that came up with industry first and, you know, mass produced it, kind of a thing. Like, it just so happens to be that is the case. It could have happened anywhere, and anywhere could have taken those things on. Really, you know, it's just a case of spreading the knowledge, really. Which I think at this point in time should be accessible to everyone. But I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, let's carry on with the article. Sorry if I ramble a lot in this one. It just seems like there's a lot of ideas going on here, and I'm trying to match it up with what I know of history. Like, I do study history on a particular level, especially things I'm very interested in. I'm very interested in black history and American history and African history and things like that, or at least what is out there and known of it. I'm interested in colonial history and things like that. So I do, like, you know, I'm trying to mirror all this stuff up against that and my limited knowledge of it. And from what I can tell, it just doesn't square with anything. And this woman saying, what did she say she was? a behavioral scientist and a psychiatrist are practicing one. Like, that is kind of disgusting. Like, okay. Anyway, supporters of the theory find credence in that the majority of historical records, for example, almost all European Fennoscandian, what the fuck is that? The largest Scandinavian powers and Baltic regions established a deep-seated anti-foreign, anti-black sentiment from their inception as small tribes and colonies into their development, which they hold today. To Welsing supporters, this evidence enough to find melanin theory almost self-proving. Well, it's not that scientific, because I'm sure you could find the exact same thing in any colour. Like, you just have to look at Chinese history and all the different dynasties and families and stuff like that. Like, they had all the same. That is basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing as chiefs and tribes in Africa and stuff like that. It's basically the same thing. Same thing with noble families in medieval Europe and all that stuff. So all this stuff that she's talking about, she's ascribing it to only white people when it actually happens in all observable races and peoples. You know, some might have slightly different, some might be slightly more accepting than others and all the rest. You know, there will be variance on that scale, but generally speaking, there will be also a trend for it as well. So, it's honestly, it's just scrambling my brain reading it. Like, you're going to see me struggle with this a lot, because I'm really trying to see the logic here, and it's fucking killing me inside. This whole thing, it's oh man, I can't even describe it. Furthermore, with the historical treatment of albino persons being skeptical at best and genocidal at worst, I'd say it's genocidal at the norm in a lot of respects. The premonition that albino people were forced from Africa is a possibility, though the reasoning for their departure is up for debate. Did they leave out of fear for their safety? It is an established truth that albino people are regularly murdered for perceived magical healing powers. Or were they expelled? With ancient Africans strongly believing in supernatural occurrences, could an albino child be seen as a curse? Well, that's how they seem to view it now. I don't know how they would have seen it back then, when it was even more superstitious than ever before. So, like, I mean, yeah, probably. And I thought that was the case she was making in the first place anyway, or was she trying to say that white people emigrated to Europe because of their racism for the blacks, not the other way around? And so, like, the white people, why? So she's literally just victim blaming them, basically, in that circumstance. Like, she's trying to say that because they're genetically defected, that's why they're racist. And basically, if you're not genetically defected, then that means you can't be racist. Like, what the fuck? So racism is a genetic thing. Is that what we're getting from this? I can't. What are they proposing? Like, mate. Well, they're telling me what they're proposing, and it's dumb as fuck. That's what it is. These questions are raised within the ISIS papers, though remain unanswered due to a lack of evidence dating so far back into human history. I mean, I think there's a lot of observable stuff through human history to say that this is pretty unanimously. If people don't treat this with massive I mean, if they don't treat it in the same way that they treat white supremacist rhetoric, then what are they doing? Like, what are they doing? Like, how can you operate in this world? However, despite the strength of the evidence based on colonial documentation, Welsing's theory does verge into the realm of philosophy, rendering some of the empirical evidence she finds redundant. I'd say the whole thing is pretty redundant, really. I mean, if we can say that eugenics and white supremacist views of the world are redundant and wrong, then I don't really understand why anyone would even be trying to legitimize this and just go, the strength of the evidence based on the colonial document. How is that the strength? How does that make it a strength? Like, what part of tribalism has never been colonial? Like, if I know anything about tribes all over the world, they've always been at war with each other. Like, you have the Aztecs and stuff like that. They were at war with each other. They were doing colonial stuff. They would invade the neighboring tribes and take over lands and stuff like that. Like, what are you talking about? We're talking about human nature here, like, and the evolution of it. And in the beginnings, when it was the fight for survival, people took that fight for survival to other people. And it has been like that forever, and it still is like that right now. So why... this is just so maddeningly ridiculous that they would even try to say that this has strength to it, in particular about the white race, as if this is unique to the white race. Like, what kind of a revised history are you looking at here? Like, what are you looking at here to even come to that conclusion? As such, critiques of Welsing's theory revolves around the plausible claim that melanin, like serotonin, is a neurotransmitter. Now, that sounds pretty retarded. I'm pretty sure melanin is just a skin-related thing. And I'm pretty sure that was proven by genetic scientists. So... And it's just a plausible claim. They're saying that it's backed up by the plausible claim, but that's... A plausible claim is not a state of fact, whereas the provable function of melanin is that it's to do with like UV rays and stuff, right? It's like your capacity to take UV rays or something like that. And like serotonin, which affects hormones and therefore thought processes and mood, melanin changes behavior also. I mean, what if that was really true? If that was really true, wouldn't that mean that when the white nationalists say that black people are genetically predisposed to violence, and, you know, we see all the violence in African countries and all the violence in black communities in America and stuff like that, that is all legitimized by genetics, and it's actually because of the melanin that they act like that? What? No! Do you not understand how wrong that is? And that this is on the fucking Black History Month, the official Black History Month UK website. Like, what is going on in this world that this is allowed? I honestly can't believe it. Like, why? No. Like, that... If I take their logic to be true, then I'd have to take the white nationalist logic to be true. And it's just insanity. No, I treat black people the same way I treat anyone else. If you're acting... I don't think that their behaviour is inherently to do with their race. I think it might be to do with circumstances and stuff like that, but I also think it's partly their own agency as well. And I think, like, you know, when people are running around doing stupid shit, they need to be called out on it, right? And, like, that is because I want the black community to actually... thrive and become a better community, and it is doing so, by the way. Like, there is a growing middle class and upper class and stuff like that, you know, but there is also a sizable chunk of the black community that is still dealing with poverty and crime and corrupt policing and other issues. But I do think there are ways to deal with this in a personal way, and that is maybe not embarking on so much criminal behaviour. And I understand that comes out of certain different contextual things. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking forward and making plans, you know? And that's what I would like to see coming out of this stuff. And there used to be a lot of people that were trying to do that for the black community back in the day. They were trying to make plans and had visions. And... I don't know, it just seems like the vision these days is to keep racism going. And this article is definitely in that camp. She might as well just be one of these eugenicists that we've heard about through the years. You know what I mean? I'm seeing almost no difference here. Like, it's really... I just fucking... I mean, I knew this stuff existed, but I've never found something like this before. It's very eye-opening and very, just mind-blowing, man. I mean, I'm kind of in shock right now reading this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of in shock a little bit here. Right. So, and therefore, melanin changes behavior. Also, this factor, to Welsing, makes blackness an established basis for moral, or more specifically, normal human behavior. As such, Welsing's melanin theory draws critique from a number of philosophical, scientific, and historical sources. I'm not fucking surprised. I'm not fucking surprised, mate, because it's fucked up, is what she's saying. Is that the only pushback that there's going to put in the? Okay, no, we've got a little bit more pushback here. Let's before I start ranting. From a historical and scientific viewpoint, many argue that the transition from African climates to the colder European ones is where the lighter pigmentation of the skin colour occurred, as the lack of sunlight means there is a lack of vitamin D, which creates melanin. Ultimately, this forces the skin to naturally become lighter over time. And that, right there, ladies and gentlemen, is why this is bullshit. Now, okay, the article has made some pushback here, which I like. But it is still questionable about what is the motive for this, and also like why is it up there? I don't know. Philosophically, the idea that moral behaviour exists is grounds for debate and has been since before the time of Plato and Aristotle in ancient Greece. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I guess moral behaviour is what you would say is what is preferential for the group, but also the individual at the same time. But the context for those can be different at different times. So, yeah, I'm not going to get into a morality debate with myself right now, but I think we can kind of understand, though, that there's stuff that you just shouldn't do, and perhaps that can be called moral behaviour. You know, like maybe killing people and stuff like that, and robbing from people and harming people and destroying things and stuff like that. We can say that that might be considered morally bad, okay? But you know, obviously, I guess it's morality is also based on your perception of things, so there's that. It also means that a collection of people being truly moral, independent of any moral evil, is difficult to fathom, as it would imply that the whiter you are, the more evil you are too. Well, yeah, that's basically is what they're saying, yeah. Nonetheless, Welsing defended her initial viewpoint and held it separate from the critiques, as any critique of her work was from a Eurocentric viewpoint. What an ideology stood to oppose. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wow. Naturally, Welsing's theories are ones that exploit a grey area in human knowledge. I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Oh no, wait. Well, yeah, they do exploit a grey area, kind of, but I don't even know if you would say it was a grey. They are exploitative. I don't know if it's a grey area though. I feel like if we can decide, because if you said that, is it a grey area that the Holocaust was bad? Is that a grey area? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're trying to think of as a grey area here, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much, and maybe I'm getting a bit too pedantic. It is a lack of empirical data on both sides, which gives both arguments that humans naturally migrated from Africa. Is there a lack of evidence, though, about human nature and what goes on? Like, what? They're saying it's equally plausible. Right, so the one option that humans naturally migrated from Africa to colder climates. Now, I reckon that's the stronger evidence. I would imagine that maybe there was some racism and tribalism along the way, probably between the white tribes and the black tribes. So, yeah, I would imagine that all was going on, because that just seems like the natural state of things. But I would imagine that a lot of the white tribes probably did band together in the face of that white on black tribalism, and moved, to colder climates, and the lack of vitamin D, like they say, made them white. You know, knowing what I know about, and it is also limited, but what I know of biology and genetics, that seems like it's all completely in line, completely kosher. But then they're saying her theory that white Africans were expelled to become white Europeans was equally plausible. Well, I mean, it seems like they're both correct in a way, but it's just that her conclusions about that whole situation are completely fucking off base. Like, they're just, yeah, they're just frighteningly disgusting. So there's another breakdown of this one, where she analyses her belief in society and its constructions with Welsing's unified field theory. Wow. This is really crazy stuff. I might do another stream on this person and look into their views a little deeper, because this is very, very interesting. I've got some other videos in the works. I'm just really slow and lazy, and you'd think that during COVID that I potentially could have done something with myself, but unfortunately I've been a little lazy during the whole COVID thing. Just been trying to ride it out. But I've got a couple of things in the works, and I might do them first. But I might come back to this lady, because this is really interesting stuff. So, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you again soon. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you like the content. And yeah, tell me what you think in the comments about this fucking crazy bullshit, man. Like, if you've got any more information about her or anything that I should read, let me know, and I'll probably do it on stream. So, yeah, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you around. I hope that isn't far.